Build your stats around your strategy, not the other way around. When adapting to a tough boss, follow this simple order. 1. Analyze the threat. Identify what you need, like high mobility, evasion, bleed, damage over time. You may want to hit the target and then get to a safe position. You may even want to consider the resistances you need. Before we allocate any of our stats, such as vitality, armor, energy, intelligence, dexterity, or the strength, these are our attributes, we're going to make sure we choose our skills. And our strategy is going to depend on what our matchup is. Do we need evasion? Do we need defense? Do we need some damage over time? Do we need to be mobile? Do we have any buff or debuff effects that we can take advantage of? Do we have utility abilities that we can consider for this particular situation? And that's what I've done here is I went ahead into the skill points of Ronin, Specialization, and Emperor's Blade to choose what skills it was I wanted to use. For example, we came up with a strategy where we're going to stack some bleed damage with Battle Glance. We're going to have some good uptime with a secondary ability like Blade Barrier that can stay active for us for a little while, that give us good uptime in DPS. We're going to make sure we have abilities like For Honor, for example, that give us a good buff effect for attack damage and movement speed. We increase our overall stats for attack damage and magic skill damage for the Way of the Warrior. A passive attack increase for magic skill damage as well. That is just readily available for us, so we take advantage of it. And we look for certain utility abilities, such as a smoke bomb, that may make the target vulnerable. We go into specializations of each of the trees after we allocate a point, and we choose the branch that we want to go into. We have certain abilities to create cleave. We want to have good say crowd control and hit multiple targets, so we spec our abilities to do such a thing with Blade Barrier. And we may even have Shuriken Throw, and Shuriken has a specialization where it causes additional bleed on hit, so we're stacking that dot damage over time. And we have certain other abilities such as Bushido, which are active buffs that we could increase to gain attack damage for every 10% of health missing, for example, or Live by the Sword to increase our DPS by way of additional attack speed or movement speed. Casters could do the same in a variety of different ways with their abilities. And then we increase our attack speed directly with Warrior's Spirit. And we have certain utility abilities like Shadow Step we don't intend to do a lot of damage with, but we ultimately want to have good crowd control, and we stun the target and we hit them in all directions, pulling them into a singular point where we could focus our enemies in a crowd. And we choose our abilities. We go through each of them choosing a specialization, and then once we've done so, we know where it is that we should be putting our vitality, armor, or energy in just a moment. We move on to that and we start balancing it so we can be in this sweet spot of knowing how many points we should have for energy, intelligence if we're a caster, if we're using any magic damage in a game, for example. We could also use dual types of elemental damage. Some are casters as well as melee physical attackers. And we have dexterity, which increases our attack rating. We want to increase our attack rating depending on our strategy at the time. And strength applies to our physical melee types. So strength is going to increase our attack damage by a percentage. And we consider our vitality based upon our confidences in our build as well as our matchups. Once we've chosen our skills and specialization, we'll have some abilities that sometimes don't meet the requirement based on our mana resources. So because we don't have enough mana, we can't use Empire Slash. This is a good time to start allocating those points to our attributes and stats. We do know that we have some abilities we can use, but we want to test them out. We're going to test out an ability called Battle Glance, and we want to see how fast it drains our mana. We know that we have enough mana as it is to use Battle Glance indefinitely. We don't have to really worry about that ability. But when we go to our allocating points here for energy, we're going to need a few more points. So we're going to go a couple of points at a time. And we're going to see if the ability is available to us. It is available to us, and we have Empire Slash now. We're going to test out Empire Slash. This is one of our special abilities, and we want to see what it does in conjunction with some of our other attacks, how fast it would drain our mana bar. So we'll throw off a couple of Battle Glances and then Empire Slash. And And it does take a good chunk of our resource for mana, so we may want to, at this point, go back to our points and allocate just a little bit more to energy as we go. We're going to allocate 2-3 points at a time, and we're going to get a feel if we could use the ability twice in a row with its cooldown. We're able to use it twice in a row, but it puts us pretty close to not being able to use Battle Glance in the meanwhile. So as we go through our skills, we go back to the stats pages here, and we allocate some more points to energy. We want to be safe that the points we're adding to energy allows us to use the Empire Slash and Battle Glance without any interferences. We see now we have good recovery for Empire Slash. We could use it as soon as it comes off of its cooldown, and we're still able to use Battle Glance. This is a good threshold for both abilities to be at as far as the energy, and we would go through each of our skills one at a time to see which abilities are going to be most beneficial to us in any given situation. We have our buffs, our debuff effects, our active attack benefits. And we want to see if we could use these abilities all together and we do have good recovery for our mana. So as long as we're aware of what abilities we're using and we have our rotation down, we don't need many more points in energy. We have 390 points left over, and depending on our specialization when we go into Empire Slash or another ability, you may want to allocate a couple of more points. But the idea here is that we do not need 100 points in energy. Even if you're at a later stage in a game, we can now use those points for intelligence if we want to do some arcane damage, if we're casting too, as well as doing some melee damage. We may or may not need the dexterity for attack rating. We could have good accuracy with most of our abilities, and we could choose to put some points into our strength at this point. We could put some points into our vitality, and we can choose to get some points into our vitality. These extra additional points could go where they need to go, and we don't need to waste any points in energy necessarily. This is how you build your rotation based upon your skills and your mana, your resources for certain abilities. We have good energy regeneration. We could use certain abilities off a cooldown, and we feel pretty confident. We could put a few more points into energy if we believe we're going to have a really, really big fight. And we may want to say go for a happy medium here, where we're definitely sure that we could always use the abilities throughout a variety of our skills and always have good recovery so that we don't have to wait too long before our mana regenerates. But that's the typical idea behind building. I wouldn't put any more points currently into energy until I got a good feel for my skills and my rotation. So I would start practicing my rotation from here. I may want to throw a blade barrier up or some other abilities that set them to my actions bar. And once we're confident that we're not lacking anything as far as our energy, we could put those points into any other stat we really need to, such as strength or where it matters, or vitality, or into our armor, increasing our physical defenses. Now that we get to determine what our skills and our energy cost is, we're happy with what we have here currently. We know that the threshold about around 13 points lets us use the majority of our abilities even simultaneously, and we don't really have much downtime, if any at all. If we time our rotation properly, our abilities will come off of CD, which is a cooldown, just in time for us to use the other abilities that we want to utilize. We do have the options of armor, intelligence, dexterity, and strength. I'm not going for an elemental damage build for arcane for this class, say for example, and I don't need really much dexterity, and I determined this by my attacks being pretty good for its attack rating overall, my base stats for my offense here and my attack damage, I'm pretty okay with a attack rating I have currently right now. So that leaves the intelligence being if I want to cast, but I'm going to go into a physical build. So since I'm going to go primarily into a melee physical class, I know intelligence and dexterity is something I've ruled out with energy so far, and that leaves armor, vitality, and strength. I could dump a bunch of points into strength, right? So I could choose to put strength into this particular attribute with a lot of points because I know that my primary ability for my attacks are going to rely on strength for my physical attacks, and this special ability is Empire Slash. And many of my abilities rely on physical attack. So strength is going to be the identifier for these physical attacks, and the majority of my abilities are physical in nature. With the exception of course, our active buffs and debuff or utility abilities that we have particularly. So now that we chose that we're going to put a lot of points into strength, we're going to go with something we feel comfortable with for vitality, and we're going to put a lot of points into vitality. Now we don't want to put too many points into strength or vitality and neglect our defenses. Where defense, armor increases our defense, we get hit physically in the game too. So we could add some points to armor, which would mean that we'd get an extra resource for vitality here, because the vitality wouldn't deplete as fast if our defenses are higher and we got hit by a physical ability. So we could choose something we're comfortable here with a synergy between defense with our armor and the amount of vitality for the threshold we feel comfortable with. For our strength, we could put a bunch of points into strength, whatever we feel that we need for strength, but the majority is going to be about 80% of our points are going to go into strength because we're a physical attacker. Or maybe we would do a 70-30 split between vitality and some armor, putting about 15 points into our armor, 15% of those points into vitality, say for example. And then we could put the rest in strength. This is how we would, go about how we're building our stats and attributes overall. And what we're going to see here is now that we're very comfortable and sure that we have the right amount of points, we're comfortable with our armor and our defenses where it's at. We know we can take a couple of hits. Our vitality is at a good threshold of 520. Maybe we want some strength here, maybe about 200 points in strength. And we can put some points into vitality because ultimately the vitality is what keeps us in the fight overall. So maybe 100 points into vitality, and if we have some left over, maybe a 75 or 70 points into armor, and we can just put the rest into strength. Essentially, our defense is good, our abilities are what we want them to be, and we close a window. And then we begin playtesting what we had built so far. And all of our abilities should have good synergy. We don't really have to switch up any of our abilities on our action wheel much. We know what the energy cost is of everything. So we could just go and start using abilities once we allocated them. And we're going to see we have more than enough ability here to use our abilities without any problems. And we built it around the sense that, for our energy cost, we have 13 points in energy. And we have a balance between armor and vitality for strength. The difference for a caster, or if you want a combination of it, is you could split up some of those points you would put into your DPS, your attack for casting, for your damage output, into intelligence. And then you would decipher if you're going to get physical attacks much of the time if you're susceptible to a particular attack, and choose your resiliences, picking up some resilience with your armor, some attributes, as well as some trinkets that you might find. The gear will help you along the way. But essentially, when it comes to skills, stats, and allocating your points, you want to set up your skills first, then you want to play test a little bit, and then take your time when it comes to the energy cost. Allocate a point or two at a time When it comes to your armor and vitality, this is really a reference of your own preferences here. Once you see, hey, armor wise, I know what my playstyle is going to be. Or if you're a glass cannon, maybe you want more vitality in armor, so as if you don't get hit one time. And then you would decide if you're a physical or a caster as far as damage output. And if your strength is going to help you, you would allocate your points to strength or intelligence. And acceptable dexterity here, the exception is if you feel that your attack rating is too low and you'll be missing attacks, or you want to improve your critical damage, add some points to dexterity. At the end of the day, stop guessing where your stat points go. Here's the takeaway. Analyze the boss, lock in your strategy, and build your attributes around your skills, not the other way around. The big picture? Whether you're running Bleed, Heavy Ronin, or playing a completely different RPG, these core principles never change. Tune your kit to the fight. Balance your energy, and stack what actually keeps you alive. Call to action is this. If this situational approach helped you, rethink your build. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite boss killing setup, and subscribe for more tactics. I'll catch you in the next one.